with some sunny spells and plenty of showers. Goodbye.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Steyn. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello and welcome along to Thursday's edition of the Mark Steyn Show. I'm Leo Kears. We have a stellar lineup of stories and guests for you today, so you won't want to miss it. Coming up tonight, the Scottish Green Party have sought to apply pressure in banning conversion therapy in 2023, but many argue that banning conversion therapy could be a danger to therapists who advise patients not to change gender for medical reasons. Sharing his thoughts on this will be the Director General of the Free Speech Union, Toby Young. New you, well, not for Cara Kennedy. The Spectator world columnist has written a news story detailing why smoking benefited her career, and she doesn't care about the health impact. And whilst New Zealand's first tobacco law prohibits their next generation from ever purchasing cigarettes, Cara argues that smoking is a personal freedom she'll be keeping up over the next year. We'll be dissecting that with her later. And now Novak Djokovic, the world's greatest tennis player, will be absent from all US competitions because he's unvaccinated. We'll have football legend Matt Letizia on this one. Plus, there he goes again, the aloof prince that just wants to be left alone. Prince Harry's new memoir, Spare, has accidentally been released in Spain. And let me tell you, the gossip just keeps pouring out of this guy. We'll be chatting to celebrity psychologist Dr. Arthur Cassidy on just what Harry was thinking. And as always, we'll bring you the stories that matter most. We can't forget the most important part of the show, where you get to give me a good pummeling. So email gbviews@gbnews.uk to do that. That's all coming up, but first, the headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Leo, thank you. Hello, I am Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom. Prince Harry has made his most damaging allegations yet against the royal family, including an accusation his brother, the now Prince of Wales, attacked him. Leaked extracts of his autobiography, Spare, which is out next week, reveal claims that William grabbed Harry by the collar and pushed him to the floor during an argument about his marriage to Meghan. Copies of the book, which mistakenly went on sale in Spain, detail how the brothers allegedly begged their father not to marry the now Queen consort Camilla. Buckingham Palace has refused to comment on the reports. The Labour leader has promised to take back control by devolving power from London to communities across the country. That's if his party wins the next election. In his first speech of the new year, Sir Keir Starmer set out his plans to grant local councils new control over employment support, transport, energy and housing. A day after Rishi Sunak outlined his 5 promises, Sir Keir accused the Prime Minister of being in denial about the problems facing the country.
More promises, more platitudes, no ambition to take us forward, no sense of what the country needs. 13 years of nothing but sticking plaster politics. It's why every crisis hits Britain harder than our competitors. The only country in the G7 still poorer than it was before the pandemic.
The government is proposing new laws to guarantee fire, ambulance and rail workers provide a minimum level of service during strike action. Under the plans, unions could be sued if they don't provide adequate cover. What the level of service will be is unclear now, but ministers say they will consult before setting it in law. A number of union bosses have criticised the proposals, but Business Secretary Grant Shapps says it's necessary for safety, especially within the NHS.
If, for example, you've got somebody who has a heart attack, maybe a stroke, the idea that there may not be an ambulance coming because there's a strike on, I think is unacceptable. We're not proposing to go the full hog. Other countries, parts of America, Canada, Australia, they have legislation which bans those blue lights entirely from going on strike. We're not proposing that. I think it's very reasonable what we're suggesting.
New figures show 29 children have died in England from strep A since September. The UK says that brings the total number of deaths to 151 across all age groups in England in the last 4 months. For comparison, in the entire 2017 to 2018 season, there were 355 deaths in total, including 27 children. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to the Mark Steyn Show with Leo.
Scotland is essentially a one-party state. The Scottish National Party has whipped up a nationalist mania. There's no viable opposition and they have control over the judiciary. This allows the SNP to railroad through terrible authoritarian legislation that removes the hard-won rights of Scottish citizens. Most recently, the Gender Recognition Reform Bill, which makes it much easier for people to change their gender. Instead of having to wait for 2 years and satisfy a medical panel, people can self-identify as their chosen gender. This is great news for women like me, but according to critics, including the SNP's own Community Safety Minister, Ash Regan, bad news for the dignity and safety of women. Flushed with success after hustling the gender reform bill through Parliament, the SNP are now proposing a ban on conversion therapy. Good news, you might think. Conversion therapy, where gay people are drugged, electrocuted or bullied in an attempt to cure their sexuality, is not just barbaric and antiquated, it's been shown to be completely ineffective. If you electrocute someone while playing them pornographic films, you're not turning them straight, you're just introducing them to a kinky fetish. But that's not what this bill targets. Gay conversion therapy, as we know it, doesn't really exist in the UK anymore. Homosexuality is widely and rightly accepted and celebrated here. Conversion therapy is now defined by LGBTQ+ charity Stonewall as any form of treatment or psychotherapy which aims to change a person's sexual orientation or to suppress a person's gender identity. So anything that doesn't affirm someone's gender identity and help them transition is conversion therapy. If your 9-year-old son turns to you and says that they're trans and you ignore it instead of booking an appointment to prescribe puberty blockers and surgery, you're committing a crime in Scotland. This is hugely problematic. As well as criminalising churches and sensible parenting, it's also criminalising clinical care. It infringes on the rights of clinicians to treat people appropriately. A clinically correct diagnosis could be a crime under this bill. Gender dysphoria, the feeling of not fitting with your biological sex, also known as being a teenager, is listed as a mental illness. But if a psychiatrist says this, they could be committing a crime. Detransitioners such as Keira Bell and Richie Herron, who felt that they were railroaded into chemical and surgical sterilisation, are just some examples of the irreversible tragedy that can unfold from a headlong rush into transitioning. We can't assume that affirming someone's gender identity and putting them on a pathway to irreversible surgery and sterilisation is always the best outcome for that person. We're still learning about gender identity. The science is still coming in, and the debate is far from settled. There's been a radical increase in referrals to gender clinics. Maybe thousands of kids are now trans, or maybe social media is driving a teenage trend, a social contagion. When I was at school, mullets and double denim were the social craze, the social contagion of the day. But you can grow a mullet out. You can't grow out a surgically removed penis, no matter how hard you blow on your thumb. Good parenting isn't constant affirmation. When I was 9, I desperately wanted to be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and looking back, perhaps there was some merit in me not having a turtle shell irremovably grafted to my back. In Scotland, 9-year-olds are being prescribed puberty blockers, which put them on a pathway to sterilisation and surgical procedures which can't ever be reversed. Legal expert and King's Counsel Aidan O'Neill has raised alarm at this proposal by the SNP and the Scottish Greens. He says that the report advocates a new criminal offence that does not require any proof or intention of harm. It will be illegal to say the wrong thing, even if it's totally harmless. There's no need for any criminal intent in order to be found guilty. So simply stating an opinion with no intent to harm anybody and no actual harm happening to anybody will be criminalised by this proposed law by the SNP. This goes against all legal statute and precedent outside of Putin's Russia. It also breaches the European Convention on Human Rights and the UK's Human Rights Act. And it will be difficult to avoid breaking the law. Gender-fluid people who change their gender identity on a whim present a minefield. If you refer to them using the gender they identified as at lunchtime, you're committing a crime. If your granny says that Sam Smith is a fat bloke in a bikini, she's also committing a crime because he's not. He's a beautiful woman. It's also likely to backfire on the very trans activists who are calling for it. When gender ideologues convince gay teens that they're trans, could that be seen as changing their sexual orientation and their gender identity? It's not the first time the SNP have bludgeoned terrible, draconian, unworkable laws into life. The named persons scheme made each child in Scotland the responsibility of the state rather than the responsibility of their parents, allowing the state to snoop on parents and breaching human rights. It was scrapped. Their Offensive Behaviour at Football Act criminalised football songs and was also repealed. Let's hope the SNP's new, vaguely defined oppressive laws around conversion therapy go the same way. Anyway, let's see what the Director General of the Free Speech Union, Toby Young, thinks on this issue. Hi, Toby.
Leo.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for joining us. And what do you make of this proposal?
Well, it's pretty draconian. There's a similar, not quite identical, but similar proposal before the British Parliament, which is being considered by the current government. But if it's based on this one, then I think we have a great deal to worry about. Let's go through what's alarming about this proposal. So it's not yet a bill. It's just a series of recommendations by a committee that was appointed by the Scottish government. And one thing it recommends is that all forms of conversion therapy directed at gay people should be criminalized. And by that, they don't just mean, sending a gay child to a kind of re-education camp. I don't think anyone would have any problem with criminalizing that kind of press ganging of gay people into becoming straight. But that's not what we're talking about here. At least it's not just what we're talking about. The model that this particular committee has recommended Scotland follow is the model followed in the state of Victoria in Australia. And in the state of Victoria, it's a criminal offence to suppress homosexuality. And that includes Christians, Hindus, Muslims saying that they think homosexuality is a sin. Merely saying that you think that it's morally wrong to engage in homosexual acts is a criminal offence in the state of Victoria. In addition, in the state of Victoria, it encompasses not just the conversion of gay to straight, but also people, as you said in your introduction, suffering from gender dysphoria, children who are identifying as non-binary or trans. In the state of Victoria, if a child wants to have puberty blockers, even a child as young as 14, if a parent says, no, I don't give you my consent, that too is a criminal offence under the conversion therapy ban in the state of Victoria in Australia. So it looks as though that's what this committee is recommending should be included in a bill in Scotland. And that just rides roughshod over free speech in Scotland. And in addition, it seems to be beyond the competence of the Scottish Parliament. This isn't the kind of thing the Scottish Parliament was empowered to legislate against in the Scotland Act 1998. So there'll be a kind of constitutional crisis if the Scottish government does try and bring forward a bill along these lines.
Yeah, because Westminster, I think it's announced today that Westminster will try and block the gender reform bill that was passed in the Scottish Parliament. So they do the same with this bill.
Well, it's not yet a bill, and we can only speculate about what's likely to be in it and which of the recommendations this committee has made will be followed by the Scottish Government. But judging from the content of the Gender Recognition Reform Bill, it's likely that they'll follow all of the recommendations. And that will mean essentially making it illegal to refer a child who presents with gender dysphoria. And let's not forget, that is still defined in medical textbooks, even the most up-to-date medical textbooks, as a mental disorder. It'll nonetheless be a criminal offence if this bill, if it takes the shape we think it'll take. It'll be a criminal offence to refer a child who presents with gender dysphoria to a psychotherapist. So if you do anything other than affirm the self-diagnosis of a child who tells you they think they were born in the wrong body and they want to start taking puberty blockers and embark on an irreversible medical pathway, then you could be jailed. So that just seems completely nuts.
And the definitions seem so vaguely defined in the recommendations that have been made. I mean, it seems realistic that the trans activists themselves, the gender ideologists who are coercing or railroading children and people such as Keira Bell into transitioning, they could also be seen as guilty of conversion therapy, because I mean there's some criticism of gender ideology that it's erasing gay people.
Yes.
Gay teens who express behaviour that's traditionally seen as from the other gender are now being transitioned to the other gender.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, this is a point that people who've objected to banning conversion therapy have made, which is that embarking on a transition, affirming a child's self-diagnosis as having been born in the wrong body, could be construed as a form of conversion therapy. It's like saying to them, no, you're not gay. You are just someone who's been born in the wrong body, and you need to change your body so it aligns with your sexual orientation. And people who object to the ban on conversion therapy say that in itself is a much more pernicious form of conversion therapy, not least because it's irreversible, than people in churches praying to try and persuade a member of their congregation not to be gay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when we're dealing with the sterilisation and irreversible surgical procedures on teens and young adults, we should definitely tread carefully. Toby, thanks so much for joining us. It sounds terrifying, but thanks for your insight. Coming up after the break, we've got Spectator world staffer Cara Kennedy. She's going to give a controversial take on a habit we've long been encouraged to give up at New Year. And later, we'll be chatting to football legend Matt Le Tissier about the world's best tennis players banned from the 2 major tournaments because of his vaccination status. And tonight, instead of Stump, the Steyns will be doing Break the Curse. Keep sending those views into gbviews@gbnews.uk. Pop the kettle on, we'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
News is the People's Channel, so let's channel the people. We asked you, what do you make of the SNP's proposed conversion therapy ban? Julian said, conversion therapy, meaning convincing kids that they're born in their right body? Interesting there from Julian. Stuart says, what's involved in this conversion therapy? I mean, that's the thing. They're banning something, or trying to ban something based on support for banning something that doesn't really happen anymore. We don't have the horrific, electrocution type therapy, the medieval things, and also the Pray the Gay away camps that they have. I think they still have in America. I've never understood those Pray the Gay away camps. If you get 200 gay teenage boys together at a camp, overseen by some of those guys, there's not going to be less homosexuality going on at that camp. Anyway, on to Charles. He says, always good to see straight-talking, no-nonsense Big Leo. Thanks, Charles. Vincent says, conversion from a yes to a no. He's referencing the indie ref there, I think, which that's Scotland's version of Brexit, but instead of leaving the EU, they'd be leaving Britain. Anyway, can anybody name a single thing that's improved since that fateful day in July 2007 when smoking in public places indoors was banned in England? Can it be the case that the 2008 crash, the rise of identity politics, George Osborne's existence, Liverpool winning the league, COVID lockdowns and the cost of living crisis can all be traced back to the Health Act 2006? Probably not, but don't rule it out. Not disputing the negative effects on the old lungs that a 20-a-day habit almost certainly has, Spectator World staffer Cara Kennedy last week laid out in an article an ode to smoking, all the benefits of a life of fag breaks and brief encounters in those dingy corners, the smoking areas reserved for the fewer and fewer Lambert and Butler connoisseurs of these islands. So, Cara, how has smoking improved your life, and how can it help others too?
Oh gosh, where do I start? I mean, I thought this piece would be more controversial than it was. Apparently the anti-smoking lobby doesn't read the Spectator World, but yeah, smoking areas are my single favourite place on earth. You meet such interesting people. Like I laid out in the piece, I've had job offers, I've met boyfriends and lifelong friends. You kind of weed out the morning joggers and the people obsessed with how white their teeth are, and you meet the gritty, really interesting people in them.
Well, I mean, you could say that about smoking areas, but you could have met people at yoga instead and extended your life by 20 years. Wouldn't you rather have a job offer from somebody in a yoga class than somebody with yellow fingertips?
Absolutely not. I think the best thing about smoking is the different people that you meet, and everybody is kind of looking for the little pleasures in life. I mean, our Spectator World staff party was in a bar in DC that you can smoke inside, and we absolutely all stunk and had to get all of our clothes dry cleaned. But we had one of the best nights of our lives, and we met the most interesting people there.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the smell, because I'm a former smoker. I used to smoke probably about 20 a day back when cigarettes were affordable. I remember saying to myself, when Regal get to £2.50 a packet, I'm quitting. And now, last time I had a look, they're about £387 a packet. You've got to get a mortgage out to be able to afford to smoke these days. But I was glad when the ban came through, because you know, I'd go out and I wouldn't come back absolutely honking of cigarette ash, like I'd slept in an ashtray. I mean, do you really want your hair and your clothes to smell like an ashtray?
Well, I didn't really have this problem until 2022 for me was the year of the cigarette. I decided for my New Year's resolution that I was going to smoke more. So yeah, it's been a year of a lot of dry cleaning and a lot of shampooing. But it's been like the best year of my life. And you know, I think it's about more than smoking. It's about kind of giving in to the little pleasures in life and accepting that sometimes you need a vice because life is hard and miserable sometimes. So when you kind of accept that, yeah, I'm going to do this and it's not so good for me, but who cares? Life gets happier.
And would you ever consider vaping instead? Because then you get the nicotine fix that you're craving, but you don't get the horrible tar and all the carcinogens, allegedly. I mean, there might be bad stuff in vapes. I've got no idea. They're little robots probably trying to take us over. But would you consider vaping and smell like bubble gum?
I do vape sometimes, but I think vaping is probably just as bad. You know, I look at kids now, very young, getting off the school bus with multicolored vapes in their hand, and I think, wow, how miserable. I was hiding behind the bike sheds, buying Lambert and Butlers for £1 a pop, and they're kind of missing out on all of these things that we all kind of did in our childhoods that bring us all together. I think everybody did that as a kid, right, in school?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but we grew up. I'm probably significantly older than you, but yeah, I used to be able to buy cigarettes as a child from the sweet shop. They'd put a single cigarette in the bottom of the packet, and you'd get your cigarettes that way. I'm not sure I'd recommend it. I'm not sure in Scotland. I'm not sure what age they recommend weaning children onto cigarettes or heroin for that matter. I mean, you've mentioned vices. There are other enjoyable vices that are bad for your life. I mean, we've mentioned heroin. There's also you know, extreme sports. Would you ever consider illegal drugs?
Well, I wouldn't recommend people to go out and do illegal drugs and heroin, but look, this is about freedom and agency and not being told what to do and when to do it by respective governments. I mean, especially smoking. It's basically the government is basically trying to phase it out. Other places like New Zealand are already on the front foot of completely criminalising smoking for people of a certain age. And I just think that's a terrible thing, whether it's smoking or any other kind of vice. And it disproportionately affects the working class because smoking is kind of one of the only things that we haven't been priced out of in terms of vices. So, yeah, what a miserable world it is when your government tells you what to put in your mouth and when.
But Cara, don't you think that this shows exactly why we do, in fact, need a nanny state? Because people can't be trusted not to do stupid things that are damaging to their health for very little reward. I mean, isn't this just an example of why we need the New Zealand government and other authoritarian governments to come in and smack those Lambert and Butlers out of our mouths?
Well, if they're going to do that, then they've got to do it for the McDonald's and the alcohol and all of the other terrible things that kill you as well. I feel like smoking gets disproportionately hated by the kind of nanny state. And yeah, I think if you're going to choose one, then you have to kind of choose them all.
Well, I think it gets disproportionately hated because it's very damaging for not enough reward. So it's not, I mean, at least with alcohol, you get a fun time. Anyway, Cara, thanks so much for joining us and telling us why you love smoking those coffin nails. Coming up next, we've got the legend that is Matt Le Tissier, Le God to Southampton fans. We'll be talking about the fairness or unfairness of sportsmen like Novak Djokovic still being denied the opportunity to compete in major sporting events due to his COVID vaccination status. After that, we've got celebrity psychologist Dr. Arthur Cassidy. He's going to try and work out exactly what's going on in the head of the errant Prince Harry. Plus, the most important part of the show, you. Remember to send your views in to the team on gbviews@gbnews.uk. Don't go anywhere. See you in a couple of minutes.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions, and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Novak Djokovic, the world's greatest tennis player and appropriately named unvaxxed icon of bodily autonomy, is set to miss the Indian Wells Masters and the Miami Open after the American authorities extended the requirements for international visitors to be vaccinated until April. He said, "If I can't go, I can't go," at a press conference earlier today. He's not the first sportsman to be missing out. A few Premier League players were left behind on pre-season US tours due to their reported vaccination status. Here to discuss the madness is former England international and Southampton legend Matt Le Tissier. Hi Matt, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. Can the winners?
Yeah, good to be with you, mate.
Can the winners of these events really claim to be champions if they haven't competed against the world #1 Novak Djokovic?
I think that's a very good point. I think the winners of these tournaments, they'll probably have an asterisk by their name, and I think that's only right because Djokovic has been so good. To not have him in the field is ridiculous, really, given what's going on in the rest of the world, and we now know that these vaccines don't stop transmission. So it seems just absolutely petty. Petty politics is what I would say is coming from the Biden administration.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And normally I want to push back on what somebody's saying, but no, I totally agree. And it seems a shame that somebody, one of the things for surviving COVID is to stay fit and healthy, and nobody has stayed fitter or healthier than Novak Djokovic. Whereas other people have got vaccinated and then spent lockdown sitting inside next to their fridge, just exercising their fridge door, and their jaw getting fatter instead of staying fit and healthy. So yeah, it seems completely unfair that they're persecuting some of the healthiest people. I mean, is this effectively a vaccine mandate?
Well, I guess it pretty much is to anybody who wants to go to the US on holiday or for their job. I mean, just to Mexico and just walk across the border. They don't seem to be checking too many people down there, so I'm sure he'd be fine to do that. But I mean, when you look at some of the rules that have been made during these recent times, it does make you question everything. I mean, you said there, if you're fit and healthy, you've got a better chance of surviving this. And yet, what did we do when we got put into lockdown? Closed all the gyms and kept open all the McDonald's. What a brilliant solution to everything. Honestly, the madness is just gone through the roof these last couple of years.
Yeah, now we're seeing the long-term effects of lockdown with not just obesity and the sort of physical impact, but also the mental impact, particularly on children. We're seeing developmental they've been developing slower because they can't see people's lips when they're speaking. They haven't been in school. We're also seeing more depression, particularly amongst the young people, which seems so unfair given that young people, by and large, weren't anywhere near as affected by COVID as old people. We seem to have sacrificed the next generation, young people, on the altar for old people. I mean, do you think more sportsmen should stand up against vaccine mandates? Would you like to see some sort of solidarity in tennis with other players refusing to play in America?
I think that would be a wonderful gesture. However, unfortunately, as we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years, the sports people, very few of them, have got enough of a backbone to stand up for what's right and to stand behind Novak Djokovic and say to him, do you know what? absolutely fair play to you. You know, bodily autonomy. You know what's good for your own body. You should never be coerced into taking a medical procedure, especially not an experimental one. And he has every right to say no to that. And I'm sorry if you're trying to mandate vaccines and a vaccine that has caused death, then I'm sorry, that's not the world I want to live in, and that goes against all sorts of points in the Nuremberg Code. So I think it's disgusting, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have seen some deaths from myocarditis and other results from the vaccine, but also COVID. COVID actually leads to a higher risk of heart disease. So, I mean, you can also say that the vaccine has saved a lot of people from heart disease. I mean, I think it's easy to focus on a few examples of athletes falling over and say, oh, this shows that the vaccine doesn't work. But the figures show. I'm not sure I still trust all the figures, but the figures show that COVID is actually more of a risk when it comes to heart disease. I mean, would you accept that?
I'm not sure what figures you've been seeing, but let's just put this into perspective. Normally, over the course of a year, you get between 29 and 71 athletes having heart attacks on their field of play during a year. Over the last 2 years, we've had over 1,000 people that have collapsed with heart attacks on a field of play. Now, that is an incredible increase, don't you think? And one that deserves some kind of just some authority that just says, okay, look, we're gonna have to look into this. We're gonna have to try to find out why there has been this massive spike in young, fit sports people having heart attacks on their field of play. And the fact that they're not willing to do that is quite frustrating and tells me that, unfortunately, they probably know what it is and they don't want everyone else to know.
Well, yeah, I think it does need more investigation, and maybe they'll find a vaccine into sudden death on playing fields. But yeah, I mean, we don't know if at the moment we just don't know if those deaths are due to the vaccine, due to previous infection with COVID, or
absolutely,
due to
and
something else.
That's the whole point of it, Leo. The whole point is we don't know, so why not investigate? And for them not to be investigated tells me that there's something dodgy going on. Otherwise, what are you trying to hide? Have an investigation and let's see what it is. You know, there's no two ways about it. The increase has been phenomenal. I watch so much sport, and I noticed it 2 years ago.
The videos that have been pinging
why
around.
People aren't investigating this is beyond human. They cannot have any humanity about them whatsoever to not want to know what's going on, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah. Hopefully we will have that investigation and get to the bottom of it. Anyway, Matt, thanks so much for bringing some insight into that. And next up on the show, many revelations after Prince Harry's book accidentally found itself on sale in Spain. We'll have TV psychologist Dr. Arthur Cassidy on this one. And after that, it's time to break the curse. Keep sending those views in and don't touch that dial, as the great man would say. We'll be back in a few.
Coming up on Dan Wootton Tonight with Mark Dolan. As Prince Harry sensationally accuses William of assault, is it time for the royals to finally speak out? Plus, Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell, shares what she would make of the Royal Rumble. And there's unfiltered opinion from man of the people and ex-Corrie star Charlie Lawson and political firebrand Anne Widdecombe. That's Dan Wootton Tonight with Mark Dolan, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. only on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Steyn. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Poor Harry, he's just a spare tool in the royal shed. A spanner next to a hole, maybe. For someone who just wants to be left alone from the press, he is adding an awful lot of fuel to the fire for all to see in his new tell-all memoir, Spare, which has been accidentally released in Spain. Selling originally for £28, but is now already available for half that price, a very reasonable £14. In the book, he's claiming all sorts of things, like William and Kate made him dress up like a Nazi. No, stop it. He was just following orders. He exposed a brotherly fight, shock horror, which allegedly took place after a conversation where William called Meghan difficult, rude and abrasive. Harry said William grabbed me by the collar, ripping my necklace. Necklace? Was he dressed as Jackie Onassis? And knocked me to the floor. Oh no, not your necklace, Harry. After revealing he's killed 25 people in Afghanistan, it must be a little bit embarrassing that William managed to knock him to the floor. And after, who did he call? Not his wife, not his mates, not the police, but his therapist. Has he gone totally Hollywood? He's even gone to the extent of talking to Mystic Meg to connect to his mother, Diana. Harry seems to be seriously lost and is with a woman who has him wrapped round her little finger. Now, a man who might know what's going on up there, celebrity psychologist Dr. Arthur Cassidy. Hi, Arthur. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Mark. It's Leo. Sorry.
Yeah, it is today. So yeah. I mean, what do you think? I take it you've been following this whole saga. I mean, what do you think about Harry's relationship with Meghan?
We could say quite a lot about this, which wouldn't be correct because she is a very, very different type of persona that you would normally expect to find in the British royal family. First of all, she's an American actress, and she is still an actress. She is still acting out her roles. Remember, she was a soap actress, and she's bringing that forward in life because she has inbuilt hard drives to be a celebrity, to be an A-lister, which she never will be. And the other problem we have had is that when Harry fell in love with Meghan, he knew that she was never. I don't believe he really had the insight to understand her political abilities, her political competence, her political attitudes, nor did he really find out how she might readjust to life in the royal family with the constraints of royal protocol.
Right. I see. And do you think his past traumas could impact his current relationship, and as well as the death of his mother? There's also the fact that he's served in a war zone. He's killed 25 men by his own admission, and he was a gunner on an Apache helicopter. So they review the footage when they get back to base and actually see the people being immolated in front of them. I mean, do you think that could have had an effect on his psyche and possibly changed him?
It definitely would be, Leo, yes, because what normally happens is the resentment that we see here is imbued with previous trauma, betrayal, the fact that his own personal identity would have been under threat, as many soldiers are who have served in the traumatic situations. And on top of that, he had to cope, as long as Prince William also had to cope with the tragic death of their mother, the late Princess Diana. And this would have left a huge void. But both princes have been dealing with this grief for so many years in a different way. Prince William has privatized this, but he's coping. He's been able to maintain dignity, confirm royal protocol, carry out charity and humanitarian work. He and Princess Catherine, they are both charismatic. They've got this chemistry together. They can be seen to be conforming and enjoying royal life. No reason why Prince Harry and Meghan couldn't have been adjusted. However, you're dealing with an alpha female here, one who is absolutely chronically obsessed with celebrity status. And that can be quite an unhealthy thing, because you either are a legitimate celebrity and you spend many years climbing through the hierarchy to reach Hollywood status, or you don't. And the problem that Meghan did have, even at the human level, is one of assimilation of her cultural identity being assimilated into British heritage, which she fails to understand. But had she been given enough time, she could have learned the ropes. After all, the late Queen did go out of her way to make Meghan really welcome into the royal family. Prince William and Catherine and many other senior royals, indeed his father, Prince Charles, the then Prince Charles, now the King, went out of the way to facilitate the marriage, and also to facilitate their transition back into California. So it would be quite unfair for him to castigate the royal family in any negative terms, because both of the princes really were very, very different people. Their character types are different, their personality traits are very different. But I have seen a very subtle change in Prince Harry 3, 4, 5 months after they got married. He's now a very different guy from the mischievous, fun-loving young prince that I knew.
And do you think that's Meghan's doing? I mean, you mentioned earlier you think Meghan's an alpha female, and obsessed with celebrity, but she wasn't really. I mean, she was on, I think it was Suits. She was on, which is great, but it's not. I mean, she's no sort of Sharon Stone, if you know what I mean. She wasn't really in the upper echelons of Hollywood. Do you think she saw being a princess as an opportunity to really, become super famous? And this is her way of generating this drama, is a way of becoming, celebritizing that position.
She does, yes, and there is this fact that she doesn't seem to have the introspective nature, Leo, to be able to understand, look, this is going to take quite some time for me to live in the UK, because as an American, many Americans are living in the UK, and she could have done what many other people have done, spent time learning the ropes, she was given the Commonwealth to look after, she and Harry. There was an amazing opportunity for her to be very much involved with multiculturalism, but she didn't want that. Her drive, her power drives were very different. And I don't think she revealed the truth of the matter to Prince Harry when they were dating. Look, Harry, I don't ever want to be a royal. I want the title, but there's no way I'm going to be a member of the royal family. I want the money. She's a businesswoman, by the way, with a business mind. There's nothing wrong with that necessarily. But you cannot be a business person and be a member of the British royal family. It doesn't sync.
I mean, you possibly could, but none of them seem to do it. Apart from Prince Charles or King Charles now, with his amazing eggs from Cornwall. But do you think there's any way that Harry can patch things up with Charles and William after all the things he's said and everything we've seen in the documentary and the book?
I think there has to be a truce here, and there has to be forgiveness. I'd be very blunt about this. There has, Leo, to be an absolute understanding by Prince Harry and Meghan of the hurt that they have incurred amongst the royal family. They had done that deliberately. Secondly, we need Harry to be more authentic about the truth of the matter. Whether that comes out in the book, I'm not sure. But I believe there's a lot that he has not said publicly or otherwise. And I would love to be able to talk to Prince Harry to find out the truth of the matter, really what is going on here. Because there's part of his identity now that I will not know about, probably never will, and neither will you or I or anyone else in the UK or around the world. Because he's still privatising, I think, quite a lot in this little box upstairs. And so what he needs to do is to reach out to Prince William, reach out the hand of forgiveness. He has said very hurtful things.
Dr. Arthur, I'm afraid I'm going to have to... I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to stop you because we've got to go to a commercial break because, unfortunately, we are a business, not a royal family, so we've got to sell some stuff in the ad breaks. But anyway, thanks so much for your insight on that. Fascinating stuff.
Thanks, Leo.
And now it's time for Breaking the Curse. Let's see what you have to say. Lucy says, who would you recommend us to watch in relation to today's controversial world of comedians for real laughs, excluding yourself? Well, I'd probably include myself. You should definitely watch me, come to one of my shows, watch my YouTube channel. But there are some amazing comedians out there. Jerry Sadowitz, if you can see him live, absolutely phenomenal. One of the comedians who has been cancelled and probably will be again. And Bill Burr, American comedian, absolutely phenomenal. And if you want to see people who sadly aren't with us anymore, well, there's Patrice O'Neill is one of my favourites. Johnny says, nice shirt. Where's the suit from? The suit is actually from, I think it's from Westfield Mall in London, the Ted Baker. I bought it the day before I got married because I was really struggling to find a suit. And I magically found one that fit me and had to buy it or get married in a T-shirt. James says, did you support England or France in the World Cup? Well, I'm just glad Scotland decided to boycott the World Cup for humanitarian reasons. So that's my answer on that. I don't know, my parents are English. I don't think I could ever bring myself to support the English football team, though. I'm really sorry. They just take the knee too much. Alison says, Rangers or Celtic? Where I went to school, I was punched in the face until I supported Celtic, and now I support neither of them. Jenabeth, cool name, says, wishing Mark well. Yes, we all are. Hopefully he'll have a sustained and quick recovery and be back on air very soon. Anyway, the wonderful Mark Dolan is here covering for Dan Wootton this evening. What have you got for us tonight, Mark?
Well, we are going to react to that right royal rumble in the jungle. It's obviously a big story. It's the only story in town. Prince Harry alleging that William pushed him to the floor. He crashed on a dog bowl. My reaction in my big opinion monologue, and we'll get reaction from a man who knows the boys intimately well. Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell, live on the show, plus my all-star panel, and we've got tomorrow's papers and so much more. It's a jam-packed show. It is a Brothers at War special.
It's like Oasis all over again, Mark.
It is. Yeah, exactly. But will these two get back on stage? That's the million-dollar question. It's like a kind of showbiz lovers tiff, the kind of thing that you as a top comedian are very familiar with, Leo.
Who would you prefer, Mark? Oasis to reform or William and Harry to be friends again?
I think given what Liam's done to his singing voice lately, I'd rather have the royal boys back on stage. But either way, it's going to get top analysis tonight. It is huge. Sparks are going to fly. Also, the government are going to make it harder to go on strike. We'll get reaction from Anne Widdecombe. So much to get through.
We've got to go, unfortunately. So as Mark Steyn says, stay safe, stay free.
I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather forecast from the Met Office. For most, it's going to be a dry and a bright day on Friday, a blustery start, but the winds will be easing through the day. It'll still be mild, just not quite as mild as it has been today. It's been very mild because tucked in here between these two weather fronts, it's a warm sector, and that's where the mild air is. This cold front is pushing south tonight, though. That will bring a spell of rain, certainly some fairly heavy rain as it sinks south across England and Wales.